Stevie Nicks has spent more than 5 decades under the relentless glare of fame. She is a woman who shaped the sound of a generation, yet the price she paid was heavier than most could imagine. From the stage, she looked untouchable, but behind the curtain her life was marked by heartbreak, addiction, illness, and loneliness. At nearly 80 years old, the stories surrounding her life reveal a reality that is far more tragic than the image fans once adored. A childhood built on music and dreams. Stephanie Lynn Nicks was born on May 26, 1948 in Phoenix, Arizona. Her father, Jess, worked as a corporate executive, moving the family frequently, while her mother, Barbara, stayed home and became the emotional anchor of her life. But it was her grandfather, Aaron Nicks, who planted the seed of music. He built her a guitar when she was just 4 years old and began taking her to his small gigs. From those early days, music was stitched into her identity. By the 6th grade, Stevie's ambition was already shining. After a school talent show where she tap danced in front of an audience, she knew she wanted to perform for the rest of her life. She grew up absorbing the songs of folk legends, learning harmonies, and dreaming of a future that seemed both distant and inevitable. When she entered high school in California, fate placed Lindsey Buckingham in her path. The two teenagers connected over their love of music when Stevie joined in singing at a party where Lindsey was playing guitar. They didn't meet again until 2 years later, when Lindsey unexpectedly called to ask her to join his band, Fritz. She agreed without hesitation, and soon they were performing as an opening act for artists like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Santana. It was during this time that Stevie and Lindsey fell in love, creating a partnership that would define much of her life. Even as Fritz dissolved in the early 1970s, their bond carried them forward. Together, they formed Buckingham Nicks, releasing a self-titled album in 1973. The record failed commercially, but their voices blended in a way that was undeniable, hinting at something bigger. Still, those early years also planted the seeds of struggle. While Lindsey poured everything into music, Stevie kept them afloat by working jobs as a waitress, maid, and dental assistant. It was a pattern that would repeat itself in different ways for decades, Stevie bearing a weight others didn't see, all while dreaming of something greater, the rise of Fleetwood Mac and the price of fame. By 1975, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham's fortunes changed with a single phone call. Mick Fleetwood, drummer and leader of Fleetwood Mac, was searching for a new guitarist and had been impressed by Buckingham's playing. Lindsey agreed to join, but only on the condition that Stevie came too. It was a bold move, and one that would alter rock history forever. Almost immediately, Fleetwood Mac's sound transformed. Stevie brought songs like Rhiannon and Landslide, which catapulted the band into a new era. The group's 1975 self-titled album sold millions of copies. And suddenly, Nicks was no longer waiting tables to pay rent. She was one of the most recognizable voices in the world. But with fame came cracks that would never fully heal. Behind the scenes, her relationship with Lindsey was falling apart. They had spent years struggling together, but success only magnified their differences. Lindsey became controlling and volatile, while Stevie grew determined to carve out her own space. By the time the band began recording their next album, Rumors, in 1976, their romance was over. What followed was one of the most infamous recordings in music history. 5 people entangled in breakups, betrayals, and addictions, all trapped in the same studio. For Stevie, the pain poured into her songs. Dreams was her farewell to Lindsey, a haunting ballad of longing and loss. Lindsey's response came in the form of Go Your Own Way, a bitter retort that sliced through the air like a wound reopened every night on stage. Christine McVie wrote You Make Loving Fun about her affair with a lighting director, while John McVie, her ex-husband, played bass beside her. And Mick Fleetwood, though married at the time, was already circling toward Stevie in a dangerous affair of his own. Rumors became one of the best-selling albums of all time, winning the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1978, but its success was built on shattered hearts. For Stevie, it cemented her as the mystical high priestess of rock, yet also tied her forever to the pain of a love story that had turned into war. Every performance forced her to relive the tragedy in public, turning private wounds into global entertainment. Love, affairs, and heartbreak beyond the stage. The chaos inside Fleetwood Mac was only the beginning. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, Stevie Nicks' personal life became a web of fleeting romances, devastating choices, and regrets that never left her. Her affair with Mick Fleetwood burned quickly and painfully. At the time, he was still married to Jenny Boyd, and Stevie had only just ended things with Lindsay. What began as a friendship turned into stolen moments, but it was doomed from the start. When Jenny discovered the truth, her marriage collapsed, and she stopped speaking to Stevie for years. Looking back, Stevie called the relationship with Mick a mistake, one that broke trust and left scars. Yet, out of the pain, she wrote Sarah, one of her most haunting songs, whispered confessions of a love that was never meant to last. Her next chapter brought her into the orbit of Don Henley of the Eagles. Together they recorded Leather and Lace, a duet filled with fragile beauty. But their private life was darker. Stevie later revealed that she became pregnant during their time together and made the painful decision to end the pregnancy. She admitted to having done this 4 times in her life, calling it a heartbreak she would carry forever. Don, years later, said that had the child lived, they would have named her Sarah, a name that followed Stevie in her music and memory like a ghost. There was also J.D. Souther, the songwriter who offered her a calmer kind of love. With him, she found stability and tenderness, but she knew she could never sacrifice her independence. Choosing her career, she walked away, even as his influence lingered in her songs. In the early 1980s, she fell for producer Jimmy Iovine during the recording of Belladonna. Their partnership was creative and passionate, but Jimmy's need for control clashed with Stevie's determination to remain free. The love unraveled, though the music they made together became legendary. Perhaps the most shocking of her choices came in 1983, when she married Kim Anderson, the widower of her best friend Robin, who had just died of leukemia. Stevie said she wanted to take care of Robin's newborn son, but quickly realized it was a marriage built on grief, not love. It ended within months. And yet, through all of these romances, there was one man Stevie called her great love, Joe Walsh of the Eagles. Their bond was real and deep, but both were drowning in addiction. She later admitted she had to leave because they would have destroyed each other. Decades later, she still called him the one who got away. Addiction, illness, and the battle for survival. For all her success, Stevie Nicks lived much of her life in the fast lane, and the toll was devastating. By the late 1970s, cocaine had become her constant companion. What began as a party drug in the days when she cleaned houses to make ends meet spiraled into a dependence that consumed her every waking moment. It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning, and the last thing I thought of before I went to bed, she later admitted. By 1986, the consequences were impossible to ignore. Doctors told her that she had burned a hole straight through the septum of her nose. Friends like Tom Petty said they feared the phone might ring at any moment with news of her death. Finally, she checked herself into the Betty Ford clinic. For a short time, Stevie felt free. She even wrote songs about the experience, weaving her pain into music once again. But freedom didn't last. After leaving Betty Ford, a psychiatrist prescribed her Klonopin, claiming it would prevent relapse. Instead, it nearly ruined her. For nearly 8 years, she lived in a haze, her creativity stifled, her body swelling from the weight she couldn't control. At her lowest point, she said she considered never singing again because she couldn't bear the comments about her appearance. Looking back, she called it the worst mistake of her life. Her health struggles didn't stop there. Years of screaming over floor monitors had damaged her vocal cords, leaving her voice hoarse and uneven. In 1977, the New York Times wrote that her career might be over if she didn't retrain her voice. Later, she battled the Epstein-Barr virus, a condition that left her exhausted for months at a time. And in 2019, just after she became the first woman to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, she collapsed with double pneumonia and asthma, forcing her into the hospital. Each time, she pulled herself back from the edge. But the scars of her addictions and illnesses never truly left her. They were reminders that even rock royalty could be broken by the very lifestyle that made her famous. Loss, loneliness, and the weight of time. As the years passed, Stevie Nicks found herself carrying not only the scars of addiction and heartbreak, but also the pain of devastating losses. In 2011, her mother Barbara died after battling pneumonia. For Stevie, the loss was crushing. She isolated herself inside her home for nearly 5 months, admitting that she could barely function without the woman who had always been her anchor. Yet even in death, she felt her mother's presence, telling interviewers that Barbara continued to guide her through whispers and signs. The blows kept coming. In October 2017, Tom Petty, her closest friend and collaborator for 4 decades, died suddenly. They had recorded duets that became classics, but beyond the music, Tom had been her confidant, someone who gave her hard advice when she needed it most. Standing on stage in 2018, she confessed, "He was one of my best friends. My heart will never get over this. His death left a wound that time has not closed." Not long before, in 2016, Prince passed away. Stevie had written "Stand Back" in 1983 after hearing "Little Red Corvette," and Prince played the iconic keyboard part for her recording. Their friendship was marked by mutual respect, and he once asked her to collaborate on a song that would later become "Purple Rain." She always regretted not accepting, and she deeply regretted not seeing him one last time before his sudden death. Then, in November 2022, the unthinkable happened again. Christine McVie, the only other woman in Fleetwood Mac, her sister in music and life, died at age 79. For Stevie, it was like losing half of herself. From the very beginning, the two women had made a pact, never to let men in the industry diminish them, and they had kept that promise through decades of chaos. Stevie called Christine her best friend in the world. After her passing, she said, "I don't see there being any reason to go on with Fleetwood Mac now. Without her, it's just not the same." Today, at 76, Stevie lives with the weight of these losses. She remains a legend, but her inner circle has grown smaller, her stage companions fewer. Fame still surrounds her, yet loneliness has become her constant shadow. Legacy, survival, and the sad reality of today. Stevie Nicks has lived through more than most could bear. She has survived the collapse of great loves, the wreckage of addictions, and the slow unraveling of friendships that once defined her life. She has endured public scrutiny about her weight, her voice, and her choices as a woman who dared to build a career in a world that rarely forgave women for aging. Yet through all of it, she continues to stand as one of the most iconic figures in rock history. Her legacy is unquestionable. With Fleetwood Mac and as a solo artist, she has sold over 140 million records. She has been honored with 2 Grammys and was the first woman ever inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once with Fleetwood Mac and again as a solo artist in 2019. Her songs, from Rhiannon and Landslide to Edge of 17 and Dreams, continue to resonate with new generations, even finding fresh life on social media decades later. But her personal reality at 76 is more somber. She has no children, no lifelong partner, and she often speaks of the decisions that left her alone. "To give up 4 babies is to give up a lot that would be here now," she once said, admitting that the weight of those choices still breaks her heart. She has also been candid about her fears for her health, especially since suffering pneumonia and asthma attacks that forced her to confront her mortality. With weakened lungs, she has warned that something like COVID-19 could easily take her life. The truth is, Stevie Nicks has become the embodiment of both triumph and tragedy. She is still the mystical high priestess of rock, still able to command a stage when she chooses to perform. But the glitter hides a lonely existence shaped by loss, regret, and fragile health. For fans, she remains a goddess of song. For Stevie herself, the twilight years are haunted by the memories of friends gone, loves lost, and the music that cost her everything. Stevie Nicks has given the world unforgettable music, but her life behind the curtain is far from the fairy tale it once seemed. Do you think her sacrifices were worth the legacy she built, or did fame take too much from her? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of the legends you thought you knew.